Richard Tice, welcome.
Great to be with you. Thanks for inviting me on.
We clearly have a crime problem in our country. And we would like to know, or our readers would like to know, what you're going to do about it if you went to government.
It's not going to be solved overnight, but what we must do is we must commence a dramatic increase in our police numbers to the sort of levels they have in France. That requires about another 40,000 police officers. We've got to get them on the beat. We've allocated the right sum of money for that. We've also got to have a clear expectation, zero tolerance policing, dealing with shoplifting, antisocial behavior. Shoplifters, frankly, you've just got to take them off the streets, take them away for a few months. We've got to build at least 10,000 places in detention camps to take people, knife crime, straight off the streets. We have to completely reset the boundaries of acceptable behavior and tolerance, and the police have to be properly empowered. And then you need a new criminal justice sort of line of court cases and justice alongside the existing, because the existing backlog is so huge. We've set aside extra money, an extra 2 billion for the criminal justice system, I think it is. And again, this situation's urgent. You can start it within the first 100 days, but it's going to take a lot longer to do. And you've got to empower the police. And that's really important. And frankly, we might be at a stage where any police officer on the street should be carrying a taser. The toe rags who are stealing and carrying knives and things, they've got to understand there are consequences for breaking the law. It is as simple as that. And frankly, why do you need to wear a mask or a hoodie when you're in a shop? What have you got to hide? Maybe we should stop that too.
We need to talk about Islamophobia. This is the topic of the moment in the media right now. Can you please tell us what Reform UK's view is on this whole Islamophobia debate?
It's really important and it's very sensitive. We don't have a legal definition by statute in the UK as to what Islamophobia means. Actually, the definition that I respect and look at and think is the right one to adopt and to use is that used by the Runnymede Trust, which came out with the first definition in 1997. They've got a very clear one. If you look it up, it sets out what that actually means. It's completely different to what the likes of Sadiq Khan divisively use. It's sort of try and smear people and label people and suppress debate. And I'm very clear. On October the 11th, I called for these marches to be banned. I could see from the first one on the October the 9th that I went to that they were hateful, they were anti-Semitic, and they would encourage a degree of trouble on the streets. And I've been proven right. Utterly weak leadership from the Home Secretary, the Mayor of London, who of course is responsible for London security, the Met Chief, Sir Mark Rowley, utterly weak and feeble, the Prime Minister. They've all allowed this nonsense to carry on when now MPs are terrified, the Jewish community are terrified, the Speaker's terrified, the police won't dare arrest these extreme Islamists on Parliament Square from breaking the law and projecting a vile genocidal message onto the House of Commons. This is all because of weak, gutless leadership. And if I'd been in charge, it would have been stopped in day one. You've now got people literally closing down kebab shops and clothes shops because they're selling the wrong type of brands. You might have an association with Israel. This is literally public disorder. The powers exist already to stop this. Of course, the right to protest is vital within a democracy. But let me be clear, that does not give you the right to break the law, to incite hatred and anti-Semitism. That is the line, and that's the utter failure of our authorities to impose that line. And therefore, these extremists, they feel emboldened to the point where now we've got a by-election in Rochdale this week. My candidate received a video 2 days ago, the vilest, nastiest, racist death threat I've ever experienced, heard, or seen. Just utterly awful. And I'm afraid that is all a consequence of this weak leadership, and that's got to change. On these demonstrations, there have been lots of peace-loving people who naively think you can have a one-sided ceasefire that's not surrender, and those nice people, Hamas, will just stop firing missiles into Israel. I mean, wake up, grow up. And the truth is, on the second time I went into one of these marches, I just asked them simple questions. Do you want to free the hostages? Do you want to condemn Hamas as a terrorist organization? Do you condemn the October 7th attacks? I got shouted at, abused, pushed, shoved, megaphones blaring in my ears, drums being played. They don't want to listen. These people are deeply anti-Semitic. And most people who say, oh, it's about the right to protest and there's all nice, lovely, lovely people, when you ask them, have you been on one of these marches? Have you spoken to people and asked them that questions? They haven't got a clue. Not a Scooby-Doo.
I was going to ask you about the machinery of state and how you would actually tackle dealing with everything from the NHS to education, to the civil service in Whitehall, to the judiciary.
So on the NHS, we've got a really significant policy, which is the first time any political party is actually prepared to say the NHS is no longer fit for purpose. The outcomes are amongst the worst in the developed world, particularly with regard to cancer, for example. And that actually, it's not just money. We're spending about the average per head as many other nations. Look, of course, healthcare, free at the point of delivery, that could and should and must remain as it is with most other developed nations. But actually, we're saying that if you can afford to pay a bit more, then morally, we're going to encourage you and incentivize you to pay a bit more in order to go independent, to take the pressure off the NHS system. So we'd give you a tax incentive, basic rate tax relief on private health insurance, on self-pay healthcare. The Labour Party, they want to put VAT on all independent healthcare. Much independent healthcare, by the way, is not for profit. It's charitable as well as for profit. So that will ease the pressure on. The other thing we do is, and we're allocating an extra £17 billion for healthcare. So you've got to have basic rate tax relief for all frontline patient-facing health and social care staff. That'll retain staff. It'll attract recently departed staff. It'll get people from behind the desks, patient-facing. That's a great thing. The NHS has got to buy 3 or 4 million extra operations every year from the independent sector. That'll massively boost the capacity in the independent health sector. What that will do, I think we can get to zero waiting lists in 2 years. That's a key target. The left are going to go nuts at this. They're going to squeal that I'm privatising the NHS. Exactly the opposite is true. What we're doing is protecting the NHS by easing and taking the pressure off it permanently. That's a good thing. In education, by the way, I forgot to say, I'm so sorry, that we would, a similar approach. Labour are going to put VAT on independent school fees. We would do the opposite. We would actually provide tax relief on school fees. Again, if you can pay a bit more, we'd like to incentivise you to pay a bit more because that will ease pressure away from the state education system. Everybody benefits. Better healthcare for all, better education for all. With regard to things like civil service reform, they've just got to be told, we're the elected representatives. This is the plan. If you don't like it, please go and get a job elsewhere because we're going to deliver it. And if you get in the way, you're fired. It is as simple as that. It's a very blunt, business-like approach to sorting out the mess the country's in. With regards, we've got to reform the House of Lords, we've got to reform the ridiculous BBC licence fee, we've got to reform the electoral system. The first past the post system is deeply unfair. The current postal voting system is deeply fraudulent and open to abuse, which we're seeing in every by-election that we see. So there's a lot to be done. And as I say, we can't do it all overnight, but we set out what you should do in the first 100 days, what you should commence with. And it's a pretty comprehensive list.
There's one topic left that we haven't covered, and that's housing. Our viewers and readers would like to know, how are you going to get enough houses built which don't wreck the environment, but which are affordable to millions to buy?
Great question. And of course, it's one of the benefits of freezing our immigration is that because of the huge increase in population, that's why house prices, house rents have gone up so much, because we can't keep up. We haven't built 300,000 homes since the early 1970s. There's just not the ability or capacity to, and the nonsense talked about by the Labour Party, all the Tories, they're going to do this. They've got no chance under the existing system whatsoever. So we need to freeze immigration. let the system catch up. But what we should do is make a much greater use of our brownfield sites. There's huge quantities of it all over the country. You need to ease the planning regulations in brownfield sites before gobbling up vast swathes of green fields. And that's the important thing. And again, if you scrap net zero, you dramatically reduce some of the regulatory requirements in order currently to make new homes meet the net zero targets, so that they can still be very well insulated and all that with modern techniques. But the whole planning process is way, way too slow and cumbersome. That's just adding to the cost of homes. Make it easier to build homes on brownfield sites to higher densities, and very quickly, actually, we can catch up. And that's really important for young people.
My final question is, why should I vote Reform UK?
The Tories have broken Britain. Starmageddon will bankrupt Britain. What we've been talking about, that will literally save Britain.
Can you confirm that you will definitely be standing candidates in every constituency across the country?
Absolutely right. Across the whole of England, Scotland and Wales, we're not standing in Northern Ireland. And in theory, we shouldn't stand in the Speaker's seat as well.
We would like to thank Richard Tice, leader of Reform UK, for giving up his time to explain to us what the reform agenda is all about.
Great to be with you as always, and to your viewers and listeners. I hope it's been useful and really good to go through this contract. I urge you, download it, read it, and we welcome comments. We deliberately did it as a draft so that people can say what they like, what they think we've missed out, where they think we've got the costings wrong. That's what you do in business. That's what we should do with a contract with the people.